Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Being Beautifully Honest channel. Thank you so much for being here, for being subscribed. If you are not, and if you're not, go ahead, hit that button and just go ahead and hit the like button while you're at it. But listen, I'm really excited to have a conversation and discuss Carlee Russell. Everyone's talking about it. It's just been the news that will not die. And I'm happy to be here with attorney Dmitry. He is an attorney in the New York area. Is that correct?
That's right.
Awesome. And he represents clients in criminal cases as well as civil litigation. So tell the people a little bit about you, Dmitry.
Sure. I appreciate you having me. Thank you. I'm a lawyer here in New York City. As you mentioned, I do criminal work, I do civil work, and I also teach. I'm a criminal justice professor, and I have this YouTube channel at DShack Law that should be on the screen now. So it has a whole ton of legal information, interesting things that I think folks would like. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, please feel free to subscribe. And I will address legal issues there as I will here.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today on the Being Beautifully Honest channel. And so we're just going to be beautifully honest as much as possible about a situation that's really unfortunate, and it's Carlee Russell. When I heard this story several weeks ago, initially I just saw the headline. And when I saw this headline saying that this young woman was kidnapped, of course, my heart immediately went out. But I will say, when I had the time to read the story, just some things just didn't really add up with regards to her saying she saw a toddler walking on the side of the highway. And when I saw footage, it was the dead of night, it seemed, and it was an interstate. It wasn't like a side road. And there were so many cars driving down the highway. So if you can just tell the people a little bit about what may have opened the floodgates when she made this phone call to 911 about this toddler in conjunction with her somehow being kidnapped after the fact.
It's funny. I've been doing these interviews in relation to Carlee Russell for a few days already, if not more than that, prior to the press conference with her lawyer that happened, I think, a day or two ago.
Yes.
Now, what I said back then, and what I will continue to say now, is that it's important to be patient and let the investigation work itself out. Now, when I said that a few days ago, I was referring to her accuser, right? The person that she claimed kidnapped her. And the police really have a job to do in those kinds of cases. They have to gather evidence, right? They have to gather video evidence, photo evidence, DNA, forensic evidence, internet evidence, as was gathered in this case. That's important because, and hindsight's 2020, right? But at that time, it's important because if the police were to arrest somebody, presumably somebody dangerous, they have to turn that case over to the prosecutor, and the evidence has to be gathered in a legally sufficient way. Otherwise, it will be difficult to convict in court, right? And so the police did that. And while they were doing that, folks were up in arms and frantic and trying to figure out what happened. And I get that. That makes sense. And prior to her admission, there were people who considered it a hoax, and that's fine. As a lawyer, I deal with the facts and I deal with the evidence. The facts seem more clear now. And it seems that now the discussion has turned to whether or not she will be prosecuted. And that remains to be seen. The government, and when I say the government, I mean the investigatory branches of the government and the court system and the prosecutors, really don't like prosecuting victims, alleged victims of crimes, because there is an interest in having people come forward with crimes. So whether or not she will be charged, with what she will be charged, how she will be punished, that all depends on a variety of factors that have yet to be brought to the forefront.
Yeah, all of that makes sense because I get it. The law, as much as people may feel like it is sometimes, is not based on emotions. And I know that a lot of us are caught up in our emotions and how we feel that she had the audacity to say that someone kidnapped her when she had her attorney come out and make a statement on her behalf to say that she actually made it all up. Now, apparently, they were requesting a statement from her but she continuously declined. So do you feel that in that time period, they may have been seeking legal counsel so they wouldn't, I guess, incriminate her possibly any further instead of her just coming out and making a statement on social media or, something along those lines?
Well, they should have been, right? As soon as there is some indication that the victim of a crime may not become a victim, may become something else, and perhaps a target, certainly you should retain counsel, right? Because any direct statements, as they say, can be used against her and will be used against her. So it was suspicious for some people that she took some time to talk to law enforcement. But in a case like this, that's commonplace. And particularly in light of the developments, that's commonplace. Absolutely. Anybody dealing with the criminal justice system, and this is just a blanket statement, should have a lawyer. That's not to say that the lawyer should be combative or adversarial, but there should be somebody to consult with and somebody to act as effectively a mouthpiece with the government agencies.
Yeah, that all of that makes sense. Now, I'm not sure how true this is, but I did hear that she went to celebrate her birthday in Atlanta maybe last weekend. I don't know, and you can share your thoughts on this if this has anything to do with the fact that she lied and came out after the fact via her attorney to make a statement saying that she made it all up. But in the meantime, she went to Atlanta and celebrated and partied, celebrated her birthday with her family. And I also saw that her family has had a flood of people coming around their family home and in Alabama. And, prior to all of that, her family went on the Today Show to have this interview and discuss the fact that their daughter definitely was kidnapped and people should stop making these accusations about her possibly making it up because she fought for her life. But after that, the parents wouldn't make a statement. I get they didn't have to make a statement, but would the parents possibly be implicated in any of this if she were to wind up having some charges against her for, a false police report or anything else?
Sure. So it's important to designate the roles of the parties here, right? The parents have no duty to anybody legally. What they do have a duty to do, perhaps morally, perhaps, is protect their daughter and their girlfriend, right? And that's what they did, right? So their job is to make sure that she's not further hurt, traumatized, protected, so on and so forth. Now, in terms of them having any criminal exposure here, lying to people isn't a crime, right? Lying to police, maybe, right? On the federal level, it's a very serious crime. If you lie to a federal agent under 1001, it's a big deal. On the state levels as well, right? This is a serious thing. Now, in terms of them being passive wrongdoers beyond that, right? Did they help her cover things up? Nobody knows the answer to that. I don't know whether or not she celebrated her birthday or to what extent. But there are a whole bunch of terms that are thrown around like accomplice and accessory after the fact and all these things. These are all basically terms that mean somebody that helped somebody in some way do something wrong. We don't know that they did here. What we do know is they made certain statements early on based on presumably what she told them. And that was in furtherance of simply their duty to protect their loved one. And that's what they did.
Right. And just believing their child, their daughter, and what she was telling them. But apparently the boyfriend scrubbed the social media of her and said, I don't have anything to do with this and I'm disgusted, by it all. Now, the attorney coming out and making a statement on her behalf, do you feel that they're getting her prepared to possibly face some charges in Alabama for, what happened?
Well, they should be. If whether or not she does or doesn't is a different story, but of course her lawyers should discuss all possibilities with her. That's what every lawyer should do in every case. Now, again, the decision as to whether or not to charge her is a complex decision, right? You don't want to go all willy-nilly charging people that report being victims of crimes. That could be a dangerous precedent to set, right? Because what you're trying to avoid is folks being reluctant to engage the criminal justice system and reporting crime. And that's a big consideration here. And perhaps there were other considerations why she did this, what was going through her head. so on and so forth. So all of those will go into the charging decision. And prosecutors in this country have something called prosecutorial discretion. They have enormous latitude, virtually no oversight as to whether or not they charge a defendant, right? And so the decision will be primarily theirs.
That makes a lot of sense. And I think that's something that a lot of people may not consider. Like you said, prosecutorial discretion, because there are a lot of people that are saying, yeah, she's definitely going to jail. I personally don't know. I don't even know what I really feel about her going to jail, but I do know that she wouldn't be the first person to face charges and serve time because of a lie about, kidnapping. I mentioned in some previous videos the Sherry Papini case, where she was a woman that was similarly lying about being kidnapped. And I believe it was maybe a year or two after the fact, possibly longer, where she finally did get charged and was convicted. Now, I would love to know your thoughts on the opinion. I will say it like this. There are a lot of people in the African American community that feel that what she did has now caused an issue with, if there is another African American woman, particularly, that comes up missing and is reported as being kidnapped, that because she admitted that this was all a hoax, that now law enforcement isn't going to pursue those cases. How do you feel about that? Like, is that something that they can even consider and say, well, this happened in the past, and now we just have to be careful about wasting the county or the city's time in going after a possible kidnapper and seeing if we can find this person because it's
No, legally speaking, of course, they can't consider it, right? Every case is specific to its facts, and every case has to be dealt with individually. There's no doubt about that. Now, the issue is more with the kind of public sentiment, right? Whenever a victim of a crime tells some untrue statement to somebody about that crime, perhaps not even on this large scale, but in general, right? That hurts other victims. There's no doubt about that. But of course, police can't consider that. You would hope, would not consider it.
right.
And every case, particularly serious cases such as kidnapping cases or murder cases or sexual assault cases, right? These are incredibly serious cases in the criminal justice system, and they are all across the country afforded a large degree of attention, and they should be. And you would hope that doesn't change. Look, people for one reason or another lie to police every day.
True.
The hope is that they don't do so for any malicious reason, and the hope is that police aren't impacted by those things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like you were saying, there are people that unfortunately lie about being sexually assaulted, but it doesn't negate the fact that there are a lot of people that actually were sexually assaulted. So I I just personally don't feel that that is going to, what Carlee Russell did is going to cause there being an issue with these other situations being investigated and these, victims being hopefully found, because people lie, unfortunately, in other situations. And it doesn't mean that when it happens to someone else, they're going to have a pause to say, well, Carlee Russell, she lied before, so we don't really know if that is going to, if this is a serious situation. So let's just hold off on that and see how things pan out. And so I appreciate you speaking on that, because I do understand the opinions and the sentiment, especially of some African American women who feel that unfortunately there may not be times when their cases are garnering the attention that, for example, a Natalie Holloway or, similar situation like that. But unfortunately, there are a lot of people that go missing a lot. And most of those cases don't garner national, headlines. So I just feel that it's something that they kind of need to not blame Carlee Russell for, but just be able to focus on the fact that they have a duty and a job to do, and they can't base them pursuing these other situations based on a liar from the past. Like now, we can say Carlee Russell, it's not allegedly she did lie, she admitted it. So I appreciate you explaining that.
Look,
Now, yeah, so when it comes to the attorney and the statement that was made, do you feel how do I put this? Let's see. I appreciate the attorney coming out and making the statement, but do you feel that things might have, even though we don't know the outcome yet, because as of this moment, there have been no charges filed against Carlee Russell. But there are some people of the opinion that she should have come out and made the statement herself. Do you feel that her having her attorney come out and make the statement is going to have any impact on her possibly getting charged for this or not?
it shouldn't. And look, whether or not it does is largely irrelevant. No lawyer worth his salt would let his client make that kind of statement. It's effectively an admission. I mean, that's basically malpractice. Look, you shouldn't let your client talk to police in this kind of instance in general, let alone admitting to a crime. I mean, that would just be silly, particularly in a public forum. So whether or not it goes into the charging decision, it shouldn't.
Okay.
Whether or not that makes a difference, it doesn't. But it may make a difference with folks in the public sector, right?
Yeah.
In the public space, on social media, so on and so forth. To
Right.
that extent, it'll matter for sure. I'm not a publicist. I'm not a public relations person.
Right.
Certainly, with people that aren't familiar with how the justice system works in detail, it looks bad. But
Yeah.
anybody charged with or possibly charged with a crime cannot talk to anybody. And she shouldn't be talking to anybody. And that was absolutely the right call. There's no doubt about that. No lawyer would tell you otherwise.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thankfully, I don't have any experience with that system. So the only experience I have is, watching a television show or a movie where a possible defendant or criminal will say, I don't want to speak anymore. I want my attorney. So it actually does make sense when you put it in that sense.
Right.
Because honestly, just hearing the opinions of people on social media that felt like, well, Carlee, she should have come out and made the statement herself. She did what she did. She needs to come out and make a statement. But right, I mean, at this point in time, she possibly could be a criminal defendant, meaning she could be getting charged. But at this point in time, she has not. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense for her to come out and make that statement herself, especially when she does have legal counsel. So I'm glad you put it in that way, because I do believe a lot of people need to hear that. And we who are just the viewing public, a lot of us are in our feelings and in our emotions, but we know that the justice system and the laws, they don't have a heart, they don't have feelings, they don't have emotions. So it doesn't operate the same way, that we do.
Folks think, the way general population looks at this is to say, well, look, as it relates to talking to police, if I'm telling the truth and I have nothing to hide, then I can talk. There's nothing wrong with that. Look, a couple of things. Number one, most police, most law enforcement overwhelmingly are good, honest people. Nobody looks to catch anybody or send innocent people to jail. I deal with cops every day. They don't do that.
Right.
But if people think that I'm going to just talk to police and tell the truth and everything will be okay, I assure you that they have never been charged with a crime or indicted or put on trial. Because when you make those statements, you are unaware of what the next year or two will bring in terms of discovery, document exchange, witnesses coming forward, so on and so forth. And then what you do is you limit your defense at trial, right? So you may have thought that what you're saying is entirely innocent. It turns another way as time passes. And there's just no reason to limit that early on. That's the answer.
And that's a perfect way of putting it. I really appreciate you breaking all of these things down in a legal manner, because I can speak about the emotions and the feelings of how I feel and how some other people feel, but I definitely am not an attorney. And I do feel that some people really need to hear it from a legal perspective versus an emotional perspective. Because if you go on social media or pretty much any YouTube channel at this point in time, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get the emotions and the feelings of the situations, not so much really the legal perspective. Even if you're getting some facts that I could say, the fact is she admitted that it was a lie, but I couldn't state, things in a legal perspective. So you really broke that down in a way that I feel people really needed to hear it. I definitely appreciated it. I know everyone else will. So listen, Dmitry, let everyone know how they can find you, even though your ticker is, going at the bottom for your YouTube channel.
Sure. No, I appreciate you having me on. So Dmitry Shaknovich is, again, that's my name. It's very long and difficult to pronounce. I don't suggest you pronounce it. So I've done ways, or I figured out ways rather over time to shorten it. And so my website is dshaklaw.com and my YouTube handle is @dshacklaw. And again, if you're interested in legal topics or things of this kind of nature, then please feel free to visit it and subscribe if that's something that you think will spark your interest.
Awesome. Well, I definitely am going to have links to your website as well as your YouTube channel in the description box of this video as well. So look, Dmitry, thank you so much for being with us today. Thank you so much, guys, for being here with us. Thank you so much for liking and subscribing. So until the next time, I am Beth, and just being beautifully honest, wanted to keep it brief, beautiful, and now I'm going to say bye.